each day 50 law and order stone pelting incidents used to take place. So ultimately, final decision was 3 terrorists had to be released by government of India. We successfully, without any casualty on our side, were able to eliminate those 7 terrorists. Article 370 was abrogated. Virtually, law and order-wise, things are much under control. You have Hurriyat leadership in disarray. Those who were working on behalf of Pakistan as their stooges. It was quite eventful as DGP of J&K because I took over initially as Special DGP Law and Order in September 2016. I think immediately after 2 months after WANI'S incident, and things were very bad at that time, both in terms of law and order and the terrorism. Many roads were cut, so many district headquarters were inaccessible. Then finally I took over as DGP on 28th of December 2016 after 3 months. And I think it was quite eventful and a very challenging task at that moment because, as you know, after WANI'S incident, there were very bad law and order situation in Kashmir Valley. People would march in thousands. There would be stone pelting, whichever side the paramilitary or army or police moved. Many roads of the districts were dug, and there were blockades of trees and poles. So it was a very challenging situation, and no one was moving out. When I joined as the ADG Law and Order, people were monitoring the situation from the police control room, Srinagar. So I brought a change. I said, nothing doing, we have to visit. So I started visiting each district and contacting people. So overall, I feel it was a very challenging task, and we were able to bring around situation to a very manageable. Each day, 50 law and order stone pelting incidents used to take place. When I took over, we had to go with a very heavy hand on overground workers and launch anti-terrorist operations afresh with a new vigor, and we were able to eliminate a lot of them after. In fact, the famous Operation All Out was started then, along with the then Corps Commander of 15 Corps and the CRP and BSF chiefs. So we started that Operation All Out, listing all the top terrorists and one by one eliminating them. Azhar Masood, this is when Kandahar hijacking of the Air India took place, and you all know about how there was situation was developing, and there was negotiation with hijackers. So ultimately, final decision was 3 terrorists had to be released by government of India, and a special plane came with a very high dignitary from Delhi who landed here in Technical Airport in Jammu, and there were instructions for me. I was DIG Jammu to go to BHALWAL jail, and one of the first terrorists to be released was Azhar Masood, who later on founded Jaish-e-Mohammed. So I had to go to BHALWAL jail, get him. He, as you know, was a very important terrorist, and I had to be harsh to him to get him blindfolded, because he was earlier refusing that, so that no one in the media is able to see, and he had to be plunged into the gypsy and taken to the Technical Airport. So that operation I had to do personally. That was very memorable moment because I knew it was humiliating for the country. It would be a very sad incident for security forces and J&K police who had with a lot of effort caught such an important terrorist, and his release would lead to killings of thousands of civilians and so many high profile incidents, including attack on Indian Parliament and in J&K Assembly. So we knew what damage it will cause, but then these were the orders and we had to comply. Burhan Wani, as I said, 50, 60 incidents would take place every day, and we had a tough time in controlling law and order. One incident I remember in Shopaiya, there was information about 7 top commanders hiding in a house. So we had to launch an operation. Now I don't recall the name of the village, but it was Shopaiya district, and that operation was launched very on a specific, precise information. And I think that was biggest elimination in one single go, giving a jolt to the morale of terrorists at that time. And army, with the help of army and CRPF, J&K police launched this operation on a very specific information, and we successfully, without any casualty on our side, were able to eliminate those 7 terrorists. It was, I think, a turning point. And once we drew up a list of top commanders, and one by one we started eliminating them, tasked all my men to identify top commanders of your area and start targeting them one by one, so that these terrorists are on the run. And I think those dividends paid in the long run. See, we had a lot of successes after 2016 on anti-terrorist operations, and that process continued. And in 17, 18, 19, and now in 20 and 2021, I think top leadership of the terrorist has been eliminated. They are depleting cadres. A point that worries still was young boys still joining, because Pakistan takes advantage of problems we have in our own valley, and as long as young boys keep joining terrorist ranks, so that is a point troubling. But fortunately, after abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, the numbers are depleting, both in terms of terrorists joining, boys joining in terrorist ranks, and number of terrorists is coming down. In fact, elimination has increased. So the overall situation has improved. Today, you have virtually no stone pelting incident, virtually first since Article 370 was abrogated. Virtually, law and order wise, things are much under control. You have Hurriyat leadership in disarray, those who were working on behalf of Pakistan as their stooges, calling for bans, calling for hartals. So they were brought under they were made to account for their actions. There were central agencies who went after them, both whether it is NIA, the CBI, income tax for their alleged actions, and hawala transactions which they were indulging, and they were paying money to the stone pelters. So that action actually brought a lot of moral boosting to the security forces, and disarray of the Hurriyat and terrorist network which was operating. Hawala money was checked. So that overall brought situation to a better what you see today. See, just abrogation Article 370 and 35A is not sufficient to bring uh, complete peace. See, you must understand there is one whole nation behind this. It's all what's going on in Kashmir is orchestrated, planned, executed from across by ISI. And as long as the ISI continues with this policy, the Pakistan army continues with this policy of bleeding India by 1,000 cuts, destroying India, pumping in drugs, pumping in fake currency, pumping in terrorists and weapons, you will have this problem. But one point I really want to mention here is the ecosystem which continues in Kashmir Valley. That ecosystem needs to be broken. You have, after all, terrorists, if let's say foreigners are pumped in, are infiltrated in India, they have places to hide. Somewhere they hide. They get food. They get sport. So all that ecosystem needs to be broken. Whether your own local boys are joining, they are being brainwashed. They are being you have hundreds of madrasas in Kashmir, and maybe thousands of them in whole of India. What are we doing to check whether religious education is being imparted to them, pure religious education, Islamic education, or is it the factory for producing terror? So I think we somebody needs to look into these aspects, and the infiltration of ISI agents in various uh, sections of the society, whether it is media, intelligentsia, academia, administration. So all those need to be checked. That's what I mean by ecosystem. And uh, are we de-radicalizing our young boys? They are being brainwashed in Kashmir. So we need to have a policy, something like what President of France did. He came out with a policy to check radicalization, check hardcore radical Islamist agenda. So something like that needs to be done in not only in Kashmir, in the whole of India. You see this a lot of anti-national voices coming from Bengal, from Kerala, Hyderabad, cities of UP. So somebody needs to go into those aspects, whether the boys are being imparted religious education or are these madrasas factories of producing terrorists. I have no doubt about it. In fact, only problem is to convince the rest of the world. I think India's foreign policy is very robust. India is doing its best. You see, not only in Kashmir. First, let's talk of Kashmir. All that is happening in Kashmir is orchestrated from Pakistan. ISI is the brainchild, the mother of all terrorist organizations, whether it is Lashkar, Jaish, Hezbollah Mujahideen, everything is they are doing, and it's because of their policy against India. They do not see India as a friend, which India actually is. India is friend of people of Pakistan, but that is not. They are told it is policy of their army because for their survival, it's policy of their ISI for their survival, and they need this bogey of Kashmir, and they are doing. Unfortunately, Kashmir has become the battleground for this policy of Pakistan and ISI and the army. It's a tragedy that you are losing young Kashmiri boys in this nonsensical policy of Pakistan army and ISI. And that's why we had so many casualties, so many deaths of young boys. If you see, they have lost almost 2 generations have lost young men since 89 onwards. Now, last 3 decades, so many young boys have lost their lives. So it's very unfortunate. And if the day Pakistan army and ISI stops this, Kashmir problem I tell you, will be over. Whatever genuine aspirations of Kashmiri people are, that India is a democratic country. It can be sorted out within days. Sit across, talk to the government. I mean, they have their representatives. There are elections and time. They can project them in parliament. So all these can be, and every government in Delhi has been very, very sensitive to people of Kashmir. I think the problems can be sorted out within days and months, but Pakistan need to stop this policy of cross-border terrorism. So, if we are able to convince the world, I think a most appropriate thing would be to sanction Pakistan, and not only for Kashmir, Pakistan, wherever you see the terrorist incident, whether it is in Europe, England, America, or whichever part of the world, it has some linkage to Pakistan. You talk of 9/11, you talk of any major incident in Europe. So Pakistan is not only creating trouble in Kashmir. Pakistan Army and ISI is breeding terrorists, helping them, arming them, brainwashing them, producing, and the creation of all these global jihad and these pan-Islamic terrorist organizations like ISIS, like Khorasan, you have Lashkar-e-Toiba, Jaish. They are all creating problems all across the world, not only in Jammu Kashmir. See, it's very unfortunate that India is neighbor to two nuclear powers, China, which is emerging as a big superpower, and Pakistan, which is also nuclear nation. It is very unfortunate. I don't think any other country has two nuclear power nations. And this China's goal is to stop India's development. The only problem with China is they see India as enemy because they see it as emerging as a big global power. And by fingering India through Pakistan, their aim is to slow the pace of India's development, slow the pace of India emerging as a global power, which China sees as a competitor. So that is a problem. Initially, China did all this, all terrorism, which was flourishing in Northeast. Fortunately, India is able to control that. But now in Kashmir and all these places, Pakistan army is being used. So both are autocratic nations. They are using each other, and it suits Pakistan's agenda against India. So I think we need to engage with China, and I think diplomatic offensive needs to be launched against China, and convince the global powers, global community against the dirty role both these nations are playing. I think that is what is required. No. Yes, it does remind all of us, we had worked in 90s as young SPs. It does remind of all of us incidents happening like this when Exodus happened. But today's India is not India of 1990. Today, India is a huge emerging power. And in 1990s, there was no fencing on the border. Today, most of the LOC and IV is fenced. Today's security grid is much more robust. It is not what it used to be in 1990. The J&K police and the army and paramilitary was taken aback at that time. We were not prepared. Today's things are not that. Even people of Kashmir, people of India will not take it lying down, and they all understand the game plan of Pakistan. Yes, I agree. In these targeted killings, it's a change of strategy of Pakistan to create a fear psychosis in the minority community, whether it is Kashmiri Pandits or Sikhs. But I am sure they will not succeed. Pakistan, which is seeing the depleting cadres of its terrorists, depleting leadership, finding it difficult to smuggle and pump in AK-47 rifles to arm the young boys who may join terrorist ranks. So it changed its strategy, where targeted killings of innocent, unarmed civilian is taking place. It has a huge impact, killings like this, rather than engaging security forces. Their terrorists will have less casualties, and you need groups of 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5 groups. It will create panic all over the valley. So it is a change of strategy by ISI on its orders. All this is being done so that impression is given that even after abrogation of Article 370, things are not that good. They are actually perplexed with the change in situation, improving situation, fading terrorism, the disarray of the separatist leadership, the coming of people from those who want to invest in Kashmir, in industry, in medical institutions, in universities, which will open up opportunities for youth. A lot of tourism is picking up. This season we had a lot of tourism. So all this is actually creating panic in the establishment across. So they basically want to do high-profile incidents of minority killing so that panic is spread. And suddenly you will see that there is a sense of insecurity in Kashmir Valley, that this is what. But let me tell you, J&K police and the security and security grid will overcome this image very soon. We need to identify these people and target them and eliminate them so that no more damage is caused by ISI to the minorities. See, if you recall previous takeover of Taliban from 96 to 2001, and if you see the statistics of all data of all parameters, whether it is civilian killing, whether it is terrorist violence, 2001 was the peak when Taliban were in power. And it was immediately after 99 Kargil war when army was withdrawn for borders. But today, that is not the situation. There is no Kargil war, or no gaps would be there on the LOC and IB. There is a fencing in the LOC and in the international border. But yes, Taliban takeover has not only in Kashmir but across the world given a boost to the morale of terrorist organizations, including the ISI in Pakistan Army. They feel they have won. They have won over the whole world and two superpowers, but it's not going to be very easy. Only apprehension is that ISI will divert those terrorists who are now free from that side towards Kashmir and the weapons. But I'm sure our security grid is very, very robust and they will be able to stop. Of course, some casualties would be there, but don't fall into the trap of ceasefire. This is Pakistan's ploy. My understanding is nothing moves across the borderline without the connivance of Pakistan ISI and Pakistan Army. So it is whatever is happening, whatever happened today in Punch, it is with their connivance. And though they are apparently they are showing to the world that we have a ceasefire, but they are pumping in terrorists. So we need to be very, very alert in the days to come.